Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to wherever you are in the world. Welcome to RCI Mondays. Time for another single car championship, and this time something new with the Ginetta Cup. Tonight we are bringing you round 5 from a dark Suzuka. I'm your lead commentator for tonight, as always, John Dalton, and alongside me is Kevin Boss. Behind the cameras, as per usual on Monday, Ryan Mawson, and of course, next door to us is, as always, the live stewards. Welcome everyone.
Yeah, thank you for that, John. I'm excited for today, especially seeing the last couple of rounds where we've had some clean driving, some horrible driving, everything in between. I wonder what Suzuka brings, especially through like the single file turning through the S's, as we see Michael Sundstrom go through there now. But yeah, I'm excited for today.
Yeah, it should bring some very good racing indeed, Kevin. As you said, we've had very interesting results up and down the grid. We've had a good mixture of the top 5 drivers, and of course back tonight with a 1 hour kind of endurance race, if you like, with 1 hour. Last time out at Snetterton, we saw Mikael Sundstrom take the victory. Typically very wet British round, taking a steady start with P2 in the bag from qualifying, kept it very clean and tidy to take the win overall. Andy Boardman and Marius Torzidlo came in a close second and third, but of course more on the championship later. As we round out free practice, looking to the board on the left, we see Jose Jimenez taking the fastest time, but Christoph Verstappen very, very close behind. I mean, Kevin, you've seen Christoph in many different leagues, and he is always right up there, looking super close. Anybody's guess for pole position tonight. You've got Benjamin Howman and Maximilian Vede, again, very, very close on times. I don't want to call qualifying, Kevin, but it's going to be super competitive as always.
Yeah, definitely, John. You always see the same types of names near the top there, though Jimenez is a nice little surprise there. But yeah, Christopher Streppen, Benjamin Harmon, Veddy, Boardman, Sundstrom, those are always the names you see up top there. Don't really know who signed out today, because I know Torzidlo has also been a force to be reckoned with the last couple rounds. So yeah, you never know who's going to be up top.
Certainly so, and a driver yet to set a time, Kevin. Wolf Matuszka, still down in P25th overall. No time on the board at all, so time will tell to see what Wolf can pull out of the bag. Typically, a driver we've always seen very, very confident in the race, in the qualifying, and in the pit lane as well. So lots of positions to be had for him.
Yeah, he's one of those drivers. I forgot to mention him. As we now look, I think that's Christopher Strepen going out, or might be, what's his face? Benjamin Harmon.
Benjamin Harmon.
Benjamin Harmon. I completely forgot his name. But yeah, they're running very similar cars, being in the RCI yellow livery. Yeah, like I said before, it could be any of those names that we said before, or someone completely new, like Jimenez topping the timetable in practice.
Yeah, certainly so. Tim Ireland, obviously chief admin for this championship, has sent me some facts in my pre-race broadcast kind of preparation. He's told me that we've had 5 different pro race winners so far, and they are all in the top 5 of the championship at the moment, including Verstappen, Matuszka and Torzidlo, Sundstrom and Heilmann. And silver has been dominated by Dominic Fekete, winning every round bar round 2. And we've also had a yearly roundup calculated from Tim Ireland. Big stats from Tim Ireland today. Wolf Matuszka being our top RCI scorer on Monday events, tallying a total of 984 points over the course of the season. Mark Brown with 943, and our very own RCI staff member Les Stevenson taking 902 points. And Fukushio has had the most race starts with 38 and has only missed 2 rounds all year. Every single championship he's raced in, he's missed 2 rounds out of the 38.
Oh, that's some incredible stat. And that shows some dedication to every championship he joins then, that, you know, if he signs up, he's probably going to be there every race. And yeah, that's a good example for everyone. Like, if you signed up, do plan to be there every time. Of course, life gets in the way sometimes, but yeah, that's a very good stat to be there almost every race.
Yeah, certainly so. And this man here, Benjamin Harmon, I hate to think how many races he has broadcast over the season. Obviously, resident cameraman here at RCI finds himself racing in the Ginetta Cup as we now jump on board with him. Suzuka as of 2005, a 3.66135 mile layout, just under 6 kilometers in length. Turn 1 and turn 2, technically 2 separate turns, separated by a very small straight between the two. Very easy to overcook it on the brakes going in. Flicking it too hard can really upset the balance of the car. And now we start the switchback sequence of 3. Tipping it into 4, a little long, want to run out to the left, tuck it back to the right, or you can shorten off the corner and hug the inside, as Stewie does in turn 5. Into 6, this section is called the S curves, if we ever relate to anything in the broadcast. See the Ferris wheel on the right hand side as we head into Dunlop curve. Turn 7, very, very long turn, bit sideways for Stewie as he runs up towards turn 8, which is known as Degner curve, or Degner 1 and Degner 2. If you are old school, such as myself, very fond memories of hearing it on the broadcast. Degner 1 there, Degner 2, tucking it in very deep, use the camber of the road to suck the car around. Be very careful on track limits, very easy to overrun. And now we head up to turn 10 before braking hard for turn 11, which is the heaven. Very different lines again through here. You can always hug it very tight to try and nail the shortest line, or you can run kind of wide, take a late apex, and then nail the throttle for the biggest run ever. Through turn 12, feels like it goes on forever in a GT3 car, and it's going to feel like forever in a GT4 car as well, as we head up to the Spoon curve. Very tricky corner as well. Braking on the right hand side when the escape road appears, heading in to the left, tucking it in nicely. Be very careful on track limits here, both in the midsection and on the exit of Spoon curve turn 14. And now we begin the very, very long run up to turn 15, 130R. Very famous corner, very fast indeed, very easy to lose the car through here. Too much weight transfer too quick can really have a detrimental effect. Running too much exit curb, I've seen on the GT3s, has managed to spin a few drivers out before, but nice and clean from our very own Benjamin Harman here. Braking very hard now for the last chicane, 16, 17 of the chicane before rounding 18 on the final corner. Ferris wheel flashing away. Great scenes tonight, great time of the day to, or tell me the night should I say, to have a race. And Benjamin Harman comes across the line to set the first time, very late finish line, all the way at the end here. So he comes across the line to set a 2:13.2. Very quick lap indeed. Nobody behind yet, is yet to set a valid lap. Vade there comes across the line, 2:13 flat nearly, 0.2 to the good of Heilmann.
We see actually quite some distances between all the drivers, except Jetson coming through now. But it's not the usual close as we normally see. Well, Jimenez only 1/10 behind, but usually we see them sometimes within like hundreds of seconds between each other. But there seems to be a bit of a larger gap today. But as we've seen as well, the further qualifying goes, usually it all folds together, gets closer as the drivers get more comfortable with the car, tyres heating up and all that good stuff. And yeah, you never know who actually ends on pole position, as Michael Sundstrom has done the 2:13 flat.
Yeah, certainly so. First driver to hit the 2:13 flat, so we're going to be seeing 2:12s probably from most drivers, as Benjamin Heilmann there, I believe, pulls over to the side, back to the pits, possibly not happy with something on his car. Although any regular drivers to ACC will know, GT4 cars do not have tyre warmers, which of course will mean every lap that you turn in these cars from now on out will probably start getting faster, especially as the track temperature and the air temperature here tonight is very low, 17 degrees Celsius on both air and track. So you're going to be seeing at least 2 to 3 laps before these tyres even come into their window, I would say. And you know as well as I do, Kevin, these Pirellis at their stone cold setting are not particularly grippy.
Yeah, and when they're cold, they just don't want to grip, correct. I've had it before at night, did a Spa 24 in 2.4 hours. All driving myself, and at the midpoint, middle of the night, pressures were all over the place. Tires were cold, but it was sliding all over.
Yeah, absolutely fighting half. And just looking to the left now, Wolf Matuszka to the top of the board with a 2:12.540. We saw no lap from him in practice, so we weren't too sure where he was overall, but smashing Sundstrom's time out of the water already by 0.4. And this man here, Maximilian Vade, comes across the line, still remains in P3, has jumped up slightly, but Jose Jimenez hot on his heels, coming out of the last turn now with a big run towards the line. Currently resides in P6, looking to the delta, looking very good over the course of the lap, running the shortest method to the line across the pit wall, and does improve up into P2. with a 2:12.745. Torzidlo, like Kevin said, a force to be reckoned with, has been very, very dominant throughout all of the last few races. Does pull across the line to improve to a P5. Christian Lindgren, one of our top drivers in silver, has been fighting with Jetson all season. Comes across towards the line. I keep forgetting how long the run to the line is, and the Ginetta does improve slightly to P10, just behind Benjamin Heilman, but Jetson very, very far up the road indeed. A couple of pro cars now separating the two, and anybody who is new, of course, to ACC, wondering what is going on with the number boards, anybody with a white background we consider as a pro driver, so they were the top 20 guys that qualified overall during pre-qualifying. As we nearly see the very near miss there from Oliver Hagstrom-Vigshoe as he pulls off, and I believe Torzidlo exited the pits in his mirror. Looked very, very dicey. But anybody with a white background is, of course, what we consider a pro driver, so the top 20 qualifiers of pre-qualifying. Anybody with a grey background we denote as a silver driver, silver being in quotation marks, because as you can see, Jetson's time is P8. He's in the top 10. He's mixing it with these pro guys. Of course, they run two very different championships. They run two very different scoring systems, and we will cover all of that later on in the show once the qualifying has wrapped up. But Maximilian Vede for Virtual Drivers by TX3, looking towards his deltas for the lap so far. Looks good. Looks to be a valid lap as he comes up through 130R. Flicks it in, uses all of the exit curb that he possibly can. Still remains a valid lap, braking underneath the Yokohama bridge, flicking it right, jumping the curb, flicking it left, using all of the curb and all of the track that he can, proving why he is on the absolute ragged edge, losing a little bit of time coming out of the last corner. Very long run to the line, so he's just going to watch his delta deplete down and down and down. Currently resides in P6 overall, does improve up into a P4 with a 2:12.830. Anybody's guess on who is having pole tonight, Kevin? Drivers chopping and changing up and down the board, and Wolf Matuszka comfortably sat in the pits, not actually on circuit, trying to improve.
Well, it surprises me actually, especially when you're looking at the temperature and how long it will take to properly warm with those tyres. As we see, he's now gone out of the pits, so yeah, he's now preparing the car for one or two final push laps. But yeah, we're actually seeing what I said before. All the times are getting close together. They keep chopping and changing, and yeah, this is what we've seen through all the rounds, where yeah, the lead, and especially for the positions of like 3, 4, 5, it keeps on changing.
Certainly so. Sundstrom now fires himself to the top of the board with a 2:12.477 last time by. Anybody not familiar with Mikael Sundstrom did represent Team Sweden at the FIA Motorsport Games only last month, so a very competent driver in his own right. Did miss out on the opening round and didn't have a particularly great scorer at Zolder, although since winning Snetterton last time out, he has started to claw his way back up the championship, so definitely one to keep your eye on. And another one, Albin Manson. Normally see him higher up the grid than this, but of course coming to the line, currently resides in P26 for the Sim Brothers Racing. You see the team car ahead there, just coming out of shot. Albin Manson jumps across the line, back where I expect to see him in the P15 with a 2:13. Ethan Scott currently now resides in P26. Very long run to the line in the green and blue machine as he comes towards 15. Again, Albin Manson gets shuffled down to P16 and beaten by a silver car. And I said earlier, Kevin, these silver cars, although they're silver, they do certainly have some pace on them sometimes.
Oh, definitely, and you always see them when they know they have the pace. You see them fighting all the pro drivers for honour in the position, even though they don't gain extra points for it. It is a good feeling if you're in the lower class and you're actually fighting those that are one higher. It's a big old confidence booster, just to, like, you know, oh, these were faster in qualifying, in pre-qualifying, I should say, and I'm now actually fighting these guys. It's always a good feeling.
Yeah, certainly is going to be a big confidence boost as Nicholas Nordqvist now fires himself up behind his teammate into P17. So the Sim Brothers racing cars together on the grid, and Matthias Thornberg as well, another Swede on the grid. Benjamin Heilman currently P11, just outside the top 10. Oliver Hagstrom-Vigshoe ahead, not by much. Jetson ahead of him again, not by much. And the big jump now is to Christian Lindgren, who kind of sits in a little bit of a no man's land between the two kind of top 7 cars and then the guys behind him, looking towards the timing board here on Benjamin Heilman. Looking like a very good lap indeed as of now. Hopefully he can keep it together with a very clean run out the Spoon curve up towards 130R. We saw Maximilian Fede just a couple of laps ago get a really bad run out of the chicane and just bled away all the time towards the start line. But Benjamin now looking very good indeed. Slight time loss through 130R, although doesn't want to go over his limit and end up losing all of the time that he's just built in the previous lap. Ferris wheel flashing away, keeps it nice and tidy, not too much exit curb, although does find himself wrestling the car a little bit. Shortens the run to the line a tad by sitting in the middle of the road. Does go over to the left hand side as he comes towards the line now under the BH Auction Bridge, goes up into P4. Great improvement there from Benjamin Harman, certainly where we expect to see him, and qualifying his teammate Christoph Verstappen.
Yeah, this is more where we expect to see Stewie. You saw that compared to some of the other drivers, he kept it more within on the left-hand side of the coast going through 130R, because if you go that a little bit too far, even if you're 6-7 tenths up, you lose everything by invalidating. If you go that little bit too far, as we see Hagstrom figure shoot really cut the Casio triangle, I think that would be an invalidation. Can't see that right now, but yeah, struggling a little bit going out of the Casio triangle onto the final corner to the start-finish straight, as we see Hagstrom figure shoot go up to 9th. But yeah, for me, I'd prefer to just keep it like what Benjamin Harman did, a little bit more on the inside of 130R, not to go too wide, get caught that little bit, and then lose everything by invalidating the lap.
Yeah, certainly so. You'll be amazed at how much track limits you can take, and Oliver Hagstrom Vigashute proving how much inside curb you really can take through the Casio Triangle. It is very generous on those kind of steep curves, as Wolf Matuszka now fires himself to the front of the grid under a 212 now. We're 211.937, and you look to the top right, the track is still only fast. The track is still improving every single lap, so the later you can qualify in this, the more grip that you should have from your Pirelli tyres, as Konrad Jetson now puts himself into P10, just ahead of Christian Linger, and our two silver drivers certainly can't even separate them today, Kevin, either.
Very close between those two, and as we see all the times tumble down, it's going to be interesting to see where they actually end up. Can they get fully into the top 10, both of them, or will this be where they end up? As we see Jose Jimenez go towards the line and see if he's improved. He has not, but he still has time to do one more lap as the track constantly improves. His tyres will be properly up to temperature now, and he'll have the best shot of trying to get that pole position, as Wolf Matuszka has gone into the pits.
Yeah, certainly so. Last 5 seconds of qualifying now approaching. Victor Nordqvist, I think, just might get another lap out of it. Does continue the run into the turn 1. Unfortunately, no improvement still down in P21. But looking at Jose Jimenez's time from last time out, Kevin, his best lap was a 2:12.745, and his last lap was a 2:12.780. And I mean, if that doesn't scream consistency, and we all know consistency can win you races. So if Jimenez is putting in these lap times time and time again, certainly one to keep your eye on. And this man here, Bart Matcher, one of our RCI staff members, currently down in P15. Certainly an improvement to be seen from Bart. Usually expect him a couple of places above where he is, just outside the top 10 normally through 130R. He goes. Slight change in livery for Bart this time out. Normally the yellow kind of red and blue combination of Connection Loss Racing has been replaced with what is a silver and kind of orange type livery. So that's really going to throw me out, possibly thinking it might be Tom Shipston at a quick glance. But coming out of the Casio Triangle now, currently resides in P15 for Connection Loss Racing. Shortens his run to the line as much as he can, and a cursed livery just outside of your shot there. But does improve up into P13. Jan Yo on P10 with a 2:13.105. Very late time drilled in from him. Didn't even recognize him in the list of drivers, missing from the top 10 this time out. Konrad Jetson now towards the line, does improve up into P9. Definitely fires himself ahead of Christian Linger and puts 2 pro cars between himself and his championship rivals. So certainly one to keep your eye on. Christian Lindgren's going to have to find his way through Oliver Hagstrom, Vigashute and Jan Yo to get towards the back. And Andy Boardman, great improvement there up into P4. Jose Jimenez now comes towards the line. One of our last drivers on a fast lap. Do we see an improvement? We do. Up 1 into P5, just ahead of this man here, Benjamin Heilman. Has he got anything else in the tank of the RCI Team Yellow? Ginetta, the 796, running towards the line, shortens it to the pit wall like we see a lot of drivers do. No improvement from Benjamin Heilman, P6 at the moment, and Joe Dorber abandons his lap to practice a pit in. Looked like he was way too fast. And Victor Nordquist, your final driver to cross the line in qualifying, Kevin. What a great session that was.
Yeah, definitely. Always people changing positions. The silver drivers of Jetson and Lindgren really bring it up to those pro drivers. Very interesting to see how they'll do in the race, especially if the likes of Jimenez can keep that consistency going. If he makes no mistakes, he can be fighting for that victory if the others in front are squabbling a little bit too much. But yeah, this has it all painted out for a great race.
Yeah, certainly so. And now, as always, between the qualifying and the race, we will bring you our championship standings of how things currently reside in the Ginetta Cup. Now, Ginetta Cup GT4 Pro at the top, we have Christoph Verstappen with 70 points. Wolf Matuszka hot on his heels with 66. A little gap now to Marius Torzidlo with 52.5. Michael Sundstrom, a late charger in the championship with 49. We then have Benjamin Heilman and Jose Jimenez tied on 44.5. Andy Boardman bringing up the rear on 44. Maximilian Vede, 37.5. Joe Dorber, 32. And Mark Elgaard, a driver that we've not seen a lot of, but has managed to work his way up to P10 with 23.5 points. Rounding on to the second page, Jan Yo, the man of the cursed livery, tied with Albin Manson for 22 points apiece. Bart Matcha on 19. Dario Barzaghi with 18.5, although I believe he has signed out of this year's championship. Oliver Hagstrom Vigashu with 18, and then a big gap back to Nicholas Nordquist with 6. Matthias Tornberg on 5. Tom Shipston on 3.5, and Adrian Kalowski on 1. Jordan Daly has signed out of the championship. And following on from Jordan Daly, Adam Dubiel, Chris Downing, Michael Races, and Daniel Jim have also all signed out of the Pro Championship.
And here we go to the GT4 Silver class. We've got Dominic Fouquet, as we said before, having won 4 of the races so far in P1 with 70 points. Jetson in P2 with 64, closely followed by Lindgren, 58. 4 points behind, we got Matthew Kingston Lee with 54. A little bit behind there, Nat Shirley, 42.5. Phillips with 39. Our own Ted Edwards, 38, 1 point behind. And Victor Nordquist, 36, 33 for Lindström, and 31 for Barron. So 3 Swedes ending up the top 10. And looking at the top 20, got Matt Stevens on 29, Ethan Scott on 26, Gonzalo Vidania Herranz on 24, got Rafael Hill, 18 points, and level with him is Mike Redford. Everyone with the dash there has signed out of the championship.
Now, as we round on to the grid, a very artistic grid walk, as always, from our very own Ryan Mawson behind the cameras, gives us a chance to take a look at some liveries that we have on the grid, as always, and obviously give you a quick rundown of who is residing where. Your man on your left-hand side, Wolf Matuszka. To the right, we have Marius Torzidlo. To the left again, in the 003, Michael Sundstrom. Andy Boardman in the green machine to the right, and then to the green machine in the left, Jose Jimenez, and Benjamin Heilman starts on his right-hand side with teammate Christoph Verstappen alongside him. So going to be interesting to see, will the two teammates work together, or will it be every man for himself? Obviously no constructors in the RCI Championship, purely Drivers' Championship, but feel free to team up with any friends that you do have along the way, of course, if need be. Jan Yo on the left-hand side with the most cursed livery in sim racing. Me and Kevin still having nightmares about that face on the front end of the car. Sim Brothers to your right-hand side in matching Jurassic Park liveries. And Mark Elgaard there to your left, the man that's in P10 of the Pro Championship. Someone we weren't really expecting to see up there. Obviously starts P13, so going to be interesting to keep an eye on him, see how many gains he can make. Bart Matcha Ginetta there to your left, Matthias Thornberg, I believe, to your right in the Pink Panther car. Great to see, again, custom liveries. Ground Zero Racing on your left-hand side, David Grunstrom in the Valvoline car on the right. We then have another Sim Brothers racing car, Nicholas Nordqvist, on the left-hand side, a little bit out of position. Expect to see him a little bit higher up. Richard Phillips, RPMS Simsport, only the 2 RPMS boys tonight on Richard Phillips, and then Ethan Scott on your left-hand side there. And then as we work towards back, another Sim Brothers car, we have Matthew Kingston Lee towards the back there. We then have Joe Dorber on your right-hand side, and then another RPMS Simsport car to your left. And we then have Ted Edwards to the right-hand side. As always, sporting a bird-themed livery has been the, let's be honest, the bird-themed livery has been the livery of choice for both Ted Edwards and Phil Roberts in the Ginetta Cup. And some of you eagle-eyed viewers may notice on the side of Ted Edwards' car is a little pigeon with a mustache. Ryan Mawson there turning around to see all the cars peeling away. We see the little mustache there on Ted Edwards' car, and of course anybody in the UK will know, and maybe worldwide, I'm not sure how far this stretches, but November is obviously an annual event involving the growing of mustaches during the month of November to raise awareness of men's health issues such as prostate cancer, testicular cancer, and men's suicide. Since 2003, Movember has funded more than 1,250 men's mental or health projects around the world, challenging the status quo and shaking up men's health research and transforming the way health services reach and support men. Obviously, keen-eyed viewers would have seen Ted Edwards' little mustache-donned pigeon on the side of the car, and he is, of course, supporting Movember with his little friend on the door. Of course, a shout-out to Katrina Scott. I'm not sure if she's watching tonight. I've not seen her in the chat like I always have done in the past. But Katrina Scott, and again, another fantastic livery. And remember to check in on all your friends regularly, even if it's just a quick, hey, how you doing? As it does go a long way for some people. And speaking of going a long way, we are about to go green for 1 hour of racing with a very, very competitive field in the top 10. Everybody in the top 10 is pretty much in the top 10 of the championship. And Kevin, I don't even think I can call this one. I want to say Wolf, but we've seen the pace Verstappen gets in the race, and he is fired up when he does get going.
Yeah, but this time he does have a couple of guys in front of him that have outpaced him in qualifying on this track. So seeing the pace that Wolf had, you can only think that he just pulls away from everyone. But anything can happen, of course. If someone makes a little mistake, especially with it all being the same make of car, you make one mistake and you lose like 5-6 positions. So you never know exactly what's going to happen. But I think Christoph Verstappen will have a bit more of a challenge this week compared to all the others.
Yeah, it certainly looks like a circuit that maybe Christoph has not gelled with as much as he has done with the rounds in the past, making it almost look like a walk in the park at times compared to other drivers around him. So Christoph obviously starting down in P7 with his teammate Benjamin Harmon just ahead of him in P6. So keep your eyes on those two. And it's going to be interesting to see if Wolf can just drive away from Torzidlo and Sundstrom, or whether they will come with him. Obviously, keep saying it every week, Kevin. Pack racing is just so unpredictable almost. You can't just put your finger on one guy and say Wolf is going to lead from pole in, Max Verstappen style and just drive away from the grid, and we'll see him in 59 minutes time when he crosses the line to take the checker.
Yeah, yes, it is what we said, like one mistake can bring you all the way down, but I still believe that Wolf Matuszka has a good chance of pulling away from the start. It all depends on how good his launch is from the green lights and what he does in turn 1 compared to Mariusz Torzidlo. So yeah, anything could happen indeed, all across the grids.
Yeah, obviously Suzuka pole does reside you on the inside of turn 1, I believe. My mental kind of picture of seeing the cars navigate the chicane. Yep, Wolf would indeed end up on the inside into turn 1, and of course that's where you want to be to cover the inside again of turn 2 as the field snakes around the Casio chicane in the background. We see Wolf lining up to control the field as such towards the green flag. We're probably going to get a very straight line start from everybody here. You don't have anybody mid last corner or anything like that. Everybody's going to be in a nice straight line as we now flick towards Helicam. We see the drivers 2x2. Wolf Matuszka on your right, Marius Torzidlo on your left. Keep your eye for the green flag at the top of the screen, and we go racing. 59 minutes to go, just under the hour mark as we race towards turn 1. Wolf Matuszka on the inside. Torzidlo looks like a better run around the outside, does back out of it, thinks twice about it. Andy Boardman there looking to get a piece of the action, and it looks like Jose Jimenez elbows out already on Christoph Verstappen. Verstappen has gone down the grid, and he now comes under fire from another green fronted car. But Jose Jimenez there, we see a spinner in the background, Ethan Scott, I believe. Absolute chaos into the chicane. We've lost 1-2 drivers possibly. I think Mike Redford has got away with it in the background. Jose Jimenez now elbows out again on the RCI team yellow car. Not going to be too pleased about that. Maximilian Vede there in the background looking to capitalise on the move Jimenez has made now, as Christoph Verstappen is a little bit slow through Dunlop curve up towards Degner. We see Oliver Hackstrom-Vigershu on the outside, Christoph Verstappen on the inside. Very smart driving by the both. Hackstrom-Vigershu looked to back out of that one and thought, I'm not going 2x2 through Degner 1, certainly not even into Degner 2. Very easy to collide, bang doors, and end up on the wrong side of the gravel. But looking back now, we see from Christoph Verstappen's rear wing, Maximilian Vede in the Virtual Drivers TX3 car, looking very racy indeed, and the field seems to have kind of thinned itself out, although Jan Yo getting very close with Christian Lindgren again. We say the silver drivers can battle the pro drivers anytime they want. Up to Spoon curve in Spoon 1, pit window opens, 56 minutes just over to take your stop. Of course, a mandatory pit stop here tonight. 1 litre of fuel, no need to take any tyres at all if you don't want to, although it would cost you if you did. Although Suzuka has typically been a bit of a harsh track on tyres, Kevin.
Yeah, I still think that with the amount of time it takes to change the tyres, we won't really see that happening this race, even though you might be struggling near the end. But the time lost, I think, won't be compared to the time gained because of the fresh tyres. But I think in general that went pretty clean through the SS for lap 1. We had a few fights, as we already see Christoph Verstappen go into the pits to take his pit stop very early, not wanting to be a part of this pack battle at the start of this race. But yeah, I think it was Nicholas Nordqvist that went off in the first lap out of turn 2 and 3. Yeah, I think in general pretty clean.
Yeah, certainly so. Seen a lot worse starts at Suzuka. Normally turn 1 is the classic kind of, we're going 2x2 and neither of us are yielding, so one of us has ended up either in the gravel or the grass on the inside or the outside. But Christoph Verstappen there, we've seen him in a few races, Kevin, pit very early. He's typically the first guy in the lane, and we don't see him for about 55 minutes, like classic example Bathurst, and then all of a sudden he just kind of pops up and you think, how have you just done this? What have you done that everybody else hasn't?
Well, I guess he just likes to have the clean air, not having to directly fight someone throughout the entirety of the race, losing time because of it. And because he can put in his own pace for most of the race, it brings him a lot of time and brings him up the field.
Yeah, just gets his head down, kind of drills in the lap times, unhassled by obviously people that, like in this scenario, are kind of fighting at least 5 deep. We've got Oliver Hackstrom-Vigershu at the front there. We then have Jetson behind, Janjo behind him, Christian Lindgren with Albin Manson then behind him. So we have a bit of a kind of a 5-way duel here. Everybody a little bit spaced out, but as me and Kevin keep saying, in pack racing, any little mistake can really kind of, you know, hurt your performance. You lose a little bit of momentum, and before you know it, half the field has kind of trained it past you. As looking to the top right hand side, track has just gone to optimum, so grip levels now at Suzuka are going to be at an all-time high, so the cars are going to be feeling very good indeed. Tyres are going to be starting to come into their window now, ending of lap 2 up to 130R. Jan Yo tucks in behind Jetson, although Jetson not in for his championship. He doesn't technically have to pass him to make any more points, although he does need to get past Oliver Hackstrom-Vigershu, and when you have a silver car or a pro car between you, such as Jetson, you know, he's going to want to keep Jan Yo behind him as much as he can. And Jan Yo there pulls off into the pit lane, and now this opens the fight between Jetson and Christian Lindgren in the Sim Brothers Racing. These guys are fighting for the championship. Jetson wanting to make a move on Hagstrom Vigashue, goes all the way out to the pit wall, gets squeezed. Oliver Hagstrom Vigashue there opens up the corner to try and get a better run through 1 and into 2, but Jetson has made the move stick.
Oh wow, that was some move by Jetson, losing his little cushion of the pro driver in between, only to recreate that gap with Hagstrom Vigashue 2 corners later, even though he is under immense pressure from Oliver Hagstrom Vigashue. And that was some move, still keeping that cushion so Lindgren can't attack him directly.
Absolute blinding bit of driving there. He saw Jan Yo pull off into the pits and he thought, you know what, I still want that cushion. I'm going to get past the Swede ahead of me and create that buffer once again. Although, will we see the Swedish drivers working together? Of course, Oliver Hagstrom Vigashue, Christian Lindgren, Manson and Thornberg all representing the same nation, as we now ride on board with Matt Stevens looking at the back of Victor Nordqvist ahead. Ironically, another Swede who separates himself from his teammate of Richard Phillips ahead. So the RPMS SimSport boys here could again work together. You could get Richard Phillips backing up Victor Nordqvist into Matt Stevens, and Matt Stevens could then certainly get his car up the inside and possibly find a way past.
Yeah, and we might not see Phillips push too much forwards. He's already a second behind Tom Shipston. Yeah, this might be a good point, a good tactic to do that now, while the field is still this close and not directly fighting the car in front, because Lindgren is 4 places up. So yeah, we'll see how much teamwork they can actually do. I don't know if they're in a voice chat together discussing all of this, but might be smart for the future.
Yeah, certainly. Always have a voice chat going with your teammates, because it's great to know what you can learn from drivers, maybe even a little bit further up the road. But Mikael Sundström here in a sandwich between Andy Boardman and Benjamin Heilman behind. Heilman yet to give up for the pit lane, such as his teammate Christopher Strepa, as we see a car running wide there. I believe that might have been Torzidlo compromising his exit onto the start-finish straight, and he does in fact go defensive all the way to the pit exit. And Andy Boardman in a Grease Weasel racing car, try and say that really fast while you're casting into turn 1 around the outside, over the curb, affects the grip a little bit, but still tries to claw onto the outside of turn 2, which will of course become the inside for 3, but Andy Boardman just not able to make it stick. Although we see Andy Boardman, again an RCI regular here. I'd be interested to see how his stats have phased up over the course of 2022. Maybe we can get Tim Ireland to look into a few more RCI regulars next time for the broadcast. But Andy Boardman, you know, we see him 2-3 times a week in RCI events. Definitely a driver to keep your eye on, and he has certainly improved from when I started casting back in the kind of Asian Masters, Deutschland Masters kind of time. And yeah, great to see Andy Boardman now fighting for the, you know, the bottom step of the podium.
Yeah, and he almost was able to pull it off on the outside, but yeah, just lost a bit too much speed and having to travel too far. I've seen Hagstrom Vigashue just got a little bit wide there, and fighting against Jetson, who seems to not be able to overtake just yet. Oh, and Hagstrom Vigashue actually got his position back. So Jetson, his cushion of a pro driver between him and Lindgren is gone, as we also see Albin Monson trying to go past his teammate in order to go further up the field and try and attack Hagstrom Vigashue.
Yeah, the Sim Brothers boys here are going to want to play it very smart, obviously, with Konrad Jetson and Christian Lindgren both fighting for silver honours. Albin Manson now wanting to get involved. Maybe Manson's going to act as a kind of attack car for Lindgren. Maybe he's going to try and get towards the back of Jetson and then get himself up and past with Lindgren on his bumper. Although switching places again, we see the rear wings do have C. Lindgren and A. Manson on the back, coming down the back straight to 130R. There's a yellow flag out somewhere along the field. Looks towards the back of the grid, although as we focus towards the front, Andy Boardman in the train with Torzidlo still not giving up the back end of that car. Mikael Sundström all the while just spectating from P4, waiting for that kind of ironic mistake that me and Kevin keep talking about, where you do lose that tiny little bit of momentum and then all of a sudden one of your drivers behind you is all of a sudden alongside you, and he's putting his car up the inside into turns 1 and 2, thus losing you maybe 1, 2 or 3 positions depending how much you've lost. Although not close enough to make a move down into turn 1. We see dust being kicked up ahead, I believe, from Wolf Matuszka, who has literally driven off into the distance. 3.2 seconds to the good, and this is what you want to be doing. You don't want to be kind of battling in these trains because you end up losing more time than you do gain. Although obviously with the slipstream can benefit you, it just isn't that good for your overall race pace, and you need to be thinking about the bigger picture. And if I was maybe Sundstrom, Heilmann, getting held up in this little train, might be worth pitting and taking the stop very early to try and come out in some clean air, like we saw Christoph Verstappen do on the opening lap, and we currently see him down in P19 overall. One to keep your eye on.
I think the only problem if you do it now, you run into the problem of the pack having spread out just that little bit already, and you might end up in a fight where you don't want to be near like the likes of Kingston Lee and Redford a bit further down the pack who still needs a pit. That's the only thing that could be an issue if you pit now. But it also depends on if they think like that their race pace is fine fighting in this pack and not losing too much time. It could be beneficial to keep on pushing and maybe get that one little mistake from the driver ahead to capitalize on.
Yeah, back to the fight here with Konrad Jetson and Christian Lindgren. Lindgren definitely looking like the faster driver in the early stages of the race, all over the back of Jetson through spoon 1 into spoon 2, coming out onto the what is essentially the kind of back straight, if you like, down towards 130R, where the circuit kind of crisscrosses over one another. We ride again on board with the splitter cam of Christian Lindgren, closing ever more closer to the back of Konrad Jetson's car. Very smart move there by Christian Lindgren, not making a move into 130R. Dirty error there, washing him completely wide. Albin Manson not close enough to make the move on his own teammate. Does hang back a tiny bit going into the chicane, and Konrad Jetson does open that gap once more on Christian Lindgren. But this fight is far from over. I think this is going to be kind of going all race. We're going to have these guys back and forth as Joe Dorber now looks to make a move on Matt Stevens, and I believe Matt Stevens has dropped back. He was residing in P15, I believe, overall, but we did see a yellow flag chucked out a little while ago, and I believe Matt Stevens being the victim of such.
Yeah, I think I saw a yellow flag between car 77 and the 777. So it could have been that Dorber and Stevens had come together. Might have also been Redford that was involved in that. But yeah, some people have fallen back just that little bit. But you can only expect Joe Dorber to go past Matt Stevens in not too long a time, as we now see Victor Nordqvist try and go past Richard Phillips in the 202. But this is not the best opportunity to do it going towards Techno 1 and 2. He'll have to wait and maybe lunge it into the hairpin or try and take him out, coming out of spoon.
Yeah, the hairpin certainly a good passing point. If you can get a great run through Degner's 1 and 2 and an even better run up the hill towards the hairpin, you can almost size up the outside line of the turn before to then break on the inside of the hairpin, although Victor Nordqvist not going to be close enough to do it on this lap. We see Richard Phillips there taking traditionally a very tight line to almost cover off the lunge if it was to be had a move on. Of course, that is for P3 in silver overall, with Jetson and Lindgren being your two leaders. Two pro cars then separate Phillips between the next step of the podium, so big moves to be had for the RPMS boys if they need to get that extra point for the championship. But Mikael Sundstrom in P4 currently looks at the back of Andy Boardman's car, and looking to the back we do see Benjamin Heilmann's yellow aux light across the top of his window, looking ever more racy towards him, although these guys are not amateurs at this, and they will certainly be biding their time. 46 minutes to go, still a very, very long time indeed to make a move and make a move stick on your opponent. And as we see Andy Boardman dropping back a little bit from the back of Tor Zidlo, maybe starting to struggle into the first quarter of the race, and we ride on board now Mikael Sundstrom lining up the wiper blade like it's a crosshair on the back of Andy Boardman's car to maximise the slipstream. Boardman looking very understeery in turn 1, and it leads on to turn 2 as well. Very wide line, very oversteery. Sundstrom looking like a much tighter car, much more settled through 1 and 2. Certainly the better lines to be had, even in the dirty wake of Andy Boardman's Ginetta. Sundstrom definitely looking like he could be the man to make the move on this one.
Yeah, but it's a shame for Michael Sundstrom that in the S's it's not really a place to overtake unless the car in front of him makes a mistake and goes off track. Though I must say, I might have just been told off by Michael Redford in chat. I don't know how he's doing it, racing and typing, but I've just been void for saying that he might have been involved. So I guess that was a wrong statement. But yeah, it does look like Michael Sundstrom is now getting the better of Andy Boardman. It's just a matter of time and place where he can overtake.
Yeah, Mike Redford in the YouTube chat hitting us with an oi, suggesting, hey, I wasn't involved in that. How dare you use my name in the cast? But how he is driving and typing is like another Jordan Daly. And I was just about to point out, but Ryan Mawson behind the cameras has also just mentioned Albin Manson down in P18, stop and go 30. And the only reason we would see that this early on in the race would indeed be for speeding in the pit lane. So another trip down pit lane for Albin Manson. He's going to find himself stopped in the box for 30 seconds. It's going to be a huge time loss for the Sim Brothers racing car, and has, of course, separated himself from Christian Lindgren. But Jan Yo is going to be in a very big hurry to get past this car. Looking in the mirror, you're going to see that cursed face at the front of Jan Yo's car, but Albin Manson covering off the inside, not wanting to give the fight up too easily. Of course, Albin is quite, well within his right to fight this battle, and he doesn't just have to yield just because he has a penalty. He could make it as awkward as he wants for Jan Yo, but Christian Lindgren now sizing up almost the outside of Konrad Jetson into the Casio chicane, over one curb, over another. These two are still locked bumper to bumper, and neither of them wants to come in, although Christian Lindgren now down pit lane, going to want to get on those brakes early, don't want to do what your teammate did, and I think he just about stopped it for the line, Kevin. That looked very close on pit limiter.
Very close indeed, but this could have actually been a master move now by Lindgren, because he looked to have been faster than Jetson in this race, and now pitting it a little early compared to his rival might mean he could have the undercut on him. We can only wait and see what actually happens. So now looking with Michael Sundstrom still trying to get past Andy Boardman as they now go through the Dunlop curve towards the Deckner curves. And once again, yeah, it's only a matter of place and time whether he can do it.
Yeah, nearly on pace driver Mikael Sundstrom, definitely somebody that is going to want to look to make a move anytime soon, because he's just ahead of him. Torzidlo's gap getting ever bigger and bigger, and of course Sundstrom with the round 2 missed at Zolder. No, sorry, not the round 2 missed, the round 1 missed when we opened the championship due to the FIA Motorsport Games. He's going to want to claw back every single point that he can do as Albin Manson comes down pit lane to take his penalty, and Christian Lindgren leaves the pit lane with no penalty indeed. So great to see that has gone well for one of the three, or the four Sim Brothers cars that we normally have, to be fair. But Mikael Sundstrom back towards the front through Spoon 1 and Spoon 2. Andy Boardman using a lot more of the track than Mikael Sundstrom used there. Sundstrom looks to take a much more tighter, kind of smoother, progressive line. Whereas, the car ahead, Andy Boardman, looks to be using all of the track, really wrestling his Ginetta around. So two either very different car setups or two very different driving styles within these two drivers. And Benjamin Heilman, again, still glued to the back of Mikael Sundstrom's car. And looking down the board on the left, Kevin, we have another penalty dished out for Matt Stevens, a drive-through. And this early in the race, we can only kind of assume I would say track limits, although Will Stevenson has started sending some stewards reports in.
Yes, he has indeed, as we try and keep an eye on this fight between Boardman, Sundstrom and Harman. I'll go through the penalties, and do call me out if anything very interesting happens. We have a lap 1 incident, turn 2 involving the 6th, the 137 and the 34. Racing incident 3 wide contact during rejoin, unlucky contact. And here we have the drive-through for car 77. Was lap 1 turn 4 involving the 777 and the 77. Drive through for the 77 for a takeout, position not returned, which we always see is a standard penalty for that type of incident. Incident on lap 1 turn 5 involving the 789 and the 122, no further action. 122 turns into the 789 and the 122 ends up off track. Lap 1 turn 18 involving the 195 and the 555, no further action. The 195 loses control of the car coming out of turn 18 and causes contact with car 555. 195 suffers significant damage with the wall as a result of contact. 555's race unaffected. And the last one that we've had come through is lap 1 turn 11. 555 and the 24, no further action. 24 pulls alongside to pass and leaves little room. Car 555 makes contact but has nowhere to go.
Certainly, stewards being very, very busy indeed. What we thought between me and Kevin was a relatively clean race. Of course, the stewards have access to far more camera angles and far more data than we do up here in the box. So Great job to all of them in the box tonight, including Andreas, Martin, Connor, Daniel, Grim, Jesse Lee, surprisingly in the stewards box tonight, and Will Stevenson, who is of course relaying everything to us over in the comms box. But these guys ahead here in the picture, still battling on, no change from any position yet. Andy Boardman looks to have found a little bit of pace this lap, and Benjamin Holman certainly still just as close as ever to the back of Mikael Sundstrom, although Sundstrom absorbing all the pressure that Heilmann is putting him under. Heilmann there darting left and right. Sundstrom covering off the inside, Heilmann to the outside, makes it up the inside into the final part of the Casio chicane, side by side, out of it, side by side still. I thought we just had a little overlap then, but Heilmann looks to have been slightly compromised, as we see there from the helicam. Benjamin on the outside still has a little bit of a run on Sundstrom, although the outside of turn one is of course where there's no grip as it cambers away towards the inside. Sundstrom on the much favoured line, although Heilmann looks to attempt the cutback and then thinks twice about it as he comes round and out of turn two. Excellent views here above from the helicam, and then now going to go side by side into the S's, almost a little bit of a rub, but all is fair, nobody losing ground or position. But all the meanwhile, look what this has done to Andy Boardman. Andy Boardman has disappeared out of the helicam shot. He's somewhere up the road, and of course has brought in Jose Jimenez and Maximilian Vede in the back of his shot to make it now a four-man train. And Andy Boardman just says, see you later boys, I'm nothing to do with this.
Yeah, this is only going to be good for Boardman, seeing them two squabble so much and losing time, especially through the Casio triangle. That's going to have cost him quite a lot. But we already got the message from Ryan Mawson that the car from Sundstrom, the 899, was booked, probably by Benjamin Harmon, but no position was changed, so probably nothing to happen there. No real damage. But yeah, these guys have been, rubbing and racing for the last couple of corners, very close throughout, so we can hope that they can keep it clean and we'll see some excellent racing. But yeah, only time will tell.
Yeah, you certainly do want to indeed get your skates on. You don't want to be held up as much as these guys are holding each other up. But Benjamin Harmon still all over the back of Sundstrom into spoon one and spoon two. And look to the front there. Andy Boardman is your next set of taillights that you're seeing. He has absolutely disappeared from these guys. He thinks, see you later, I'm out of here. I'm off to catch the back of Tor Zidlo, who was only just up the road ahead. And now Heilmann with the slipstream towards 130R. Sundstrom holding the middle of the road, switches to the outside to maximize the corner, open it up as much as possible, runs very, very wide indeed, possibly a track limits maybe there, and Heilmann then sizes up the inside but thinks better of it, and Sundstrom outbrakes himself, takes to the AstroTurf. This might allow Heilmann through. Has he lifted off enough? Is he giving it back? He looks like he's given Heilmann the place. Thinks very, very fair of him to make it an equal fight again. Gives it back, although this allows now Jose Jimenez into the fight, slipstreaming. Benjamin Heilmann 3 wide towards turn one. The circuit narrows. Heilmann comes across to the left, a little rub to Sundstrom. Jimenez up the inside out of nowhere, and now Maximilian Vede looks to get involved in this fight. 4 in this train, Kevin. We were watching a 3-man train with Andy Boardman. It's now become a 4-man train with 2 green cars within this. This is superb racing from these guys. Very clean indeed.
Yeah, and here we also see what we were saying all along with having that little mistake and costing you points. As here we see, as Benjamin Harmon was able to get past Sundstrom, then Jimenez was able to get 2 positions because of them squabbling and having that little bit of contact. So it's not the worst thing in the world for them now, but we've seen in previous rounds that it could definitely hurt a driver's position if you make that little mistake and then drop back, as you now see Ethan Scott trying to go past the rear of the car of Thomas Shipston, going into turns 1 and 2. Can try and see if he takes the inside line or sticks behind. Looks like he follows suit as they enter the S's. But yeah, what we saw up front, that's what we've been saying all along, as we now see Benjamin Heilmann ahead of Jimenez, overtaking him in the hairpin. Oh, this fight has everything.
Yeah, as we flick back now to a race replay, this is back towards, I believe, Degner 2 as we go under the bridge. Obviously, of course, the top, Benjamin Harmon in the slipstream of Jose Jimenez into this turn, sizes up the inside. A little bit of a rub, maybe, a little bit of elbows out. It nearly allows Sundstrom to come back, but Jimenez with the great run and the slow flash there from Jimenez maybe says, I'm a little bit displeased with this move. However, Heilmann does go on, and stewards, of course, will get a log of that, so we will see if any penalties pop up for Heilmann there. But I think that was kind of all fair game as such. Nobody really lost a big amount of time or position, and Heilmann there kicking up a little bit of dust ahead of him. Sundstrom taking a much cleaner line, and it looks like Sundstrom now might have the run, but Sundstrom gets tagged from Maximilian Vede, has to take the pit lane. He can't avoid it, nearly ends up in the barrier, Kevin, and he just thinks, you know what, my time has come, I'm coming for the pit lane.
Fate has decided, I go in the pits, exactly. Like that was strange to see. The stewards will probably have a look at that, but I think the move by Benjamin Heilmann through the hairpin was all fair game, because he did stop the car right on the inside curve. As we see Ryan Mawson say, Scrooge, go into the pit lane there. As we had a few more penalties come through as we look at the back of Ethan Scott, and it keeps changing a little bit. So we're looking at Scott in a four-way battle with Shipston and Marchand and Lindgren behind. Looking at a few more incidents, lap 14-12. It's between the 77, the 19, and the 202. Warning for 77. He hit 19 in the rear, 19 pushed into the 222. I guess that's the 202. Lap 14 involving the 77 and the 777. 15 seconds for car 777 for taking out the 77 through 14. Position not taken advantage of by car 777. It's the same lap, same turn. Warning for 77 for not holding the brakes after an accident with the 777. Penalty upgraded to 5 seconds due to the second warning. We've had a few more come through while I was reading it through. Lap 7 turn 6 between the 33 and the 123 racing incident. 33 not leaving enough space on the inside during battle, causing contact. And racing incident minor contact between the 899 the 796 in lap 9 turn 12, and later that lap turn 18.
Certainly a lot of penalties to rattle through there, and I believe they will keep coming in as stewards are forever busy in our Discord, of course, sitting over in a separate booth to us. Andreas Connor, Daniel Grimm, Jesse Lee, Martin, and Will Stevenson as well. So shout out to all of those guys. And we have somebody in the chat that says, I wish I could sign up for this. However, it is right in the middle of my work day. So you work from home. I'm not condoning this, but you could give your mouse a little wiggle time and time again to make yourself look active on Teams. And of course, head over to racerci.com, where you can of course sign up for any of our series that we have going on at the moment. And of course, the Ginetta Cup is just one of many, where we are going to pack up from Japan in Suzuka and head stateside for round 6 next week at Watkins Glen on the 28th of November, before wrapping it all up in Blighty at Donington Park on the 5th of December. And of course, going down the RCI calendar this week, we are Mondays with Ginetta's. Tuesday, we of course find ourselves with an empty slot. Wednesday sees the beginning of our random track championship. Again, put my teeth in. Beginning with a circuit announced on the day of the race. So this, of course, stops people, you know, grinding all day, getting lap times in, pairing loads, and then turning up and absolutely ripping through the field. This does kind of equalise the playing field, I guess you could say, unless you get really lucky and you decide to practice the same track on the same day that it gets announced, before it gets announced. Thursday this week continues our new championship at round 2 at Monza for the GT4 and TCX multi-class race championships, already looking super competitive with 2 30-minute races, allowing for a bigger chance to claw back points if race 1 doesn't quite go your way. Friday, of course, has finalised its championship last week with provisionally stewards results pending. Jaroslav Honzik, aka Jardia, taking overall honours from Samir Foch and Valentin Barrier. And Saturday, this is the big one this week, Kevin. We've been talking about it for what feels like months, but finally we are here to see our Bathurst 12-hour event on the calendar. Of course, any teams yet to sign up, do head over, and I'm not sure if there is. I think there was a couple of slots yesterday. I might have seen 3, so of course grab a few friends, pick a car, and get signing up. And sign-ups are also open now as well another new championship over at RCI for our Friday Mini Winter Series. 3 rounds of GT3 action, with round 1 kicking off at Misano on December 2nd, and this will take us, of course, right up to Christmas for our festive holidays, where, of course, we do have a little break. Some of the staff members get some time with their families, some life again. Put racing aside or start competing in racing in other championships, obviously at other organisations. But of course, you can sign up and pre-qualify if needed for any of these events at any time by visiting racerci.com. And now back to the action here tonight. We have Christian Lindgren looking at the back of Bart Matcher. Bart Matcher very wide in 130R now, up to the Casio triangle. I believe Tom Shipston still essentially the cork in the bottle here almost, but has started to pull away. Ethan Scott just ahead of Bart Matcher that we see here, although Christian Lindgren was provisionally our second place silver driver before he decided to take a pit stop, and all eyes on him. He's going to have to make up a few positions now as he pulls out from the slipstream of Bart Matcher, although Bart Matcher with the slipstream from Ethan Scott decides to give Christian Lindgren the inside line. Of course, Matcher and Lindgren are no longer fighting for the same championship. Lindgren, of course, in silver, Bart Matcher in pro, and now Ethan Scott is the next man for points on Christian Lindgren as they come through the S's. It's great to see, Christian Lindgren still having to work to claw back to where he was.
Yeah, he's probably hoping that he would be in a bit more of free air so he could attack Jetson, who's still yet to pit. But we can definitely see he's trying to fight through as quickly as he can, as he's now right up the bumper of Ethan Scott. We'll see how long he can hold back the charge of Lindgren. Probably we'll see an attack going through the hairpin, as we now see them go through Deckners 1 and 2. We see Lindgren closely behind. They'll try and see if he makes the move, probably on the inside, going into the hairpin is what I would do. But looks like Ethan Scott can keep the position as they keep on going towards Spoon.
Yeah, these guys still super close, and Christian Lindgren, a driver, no stranger to putting those under pressure ahead of him. Once he gets past Ethan Scott, he then, of course, has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pro cars before he hits the next back of the silver driver, although everybody in the top 12 still yet to take their pit stop, and Matt Stevens down in P21 again, still yet to take his stop with an added 5 seconds for the penalty, although the inside line now opens up. Ethan Scott to the outside, Christian Lindgren to the inside. He's going to have the inside run through 130R, and I think he might even get the move done possibly just before they get there, but still side by side as they pull up. Lindgren on the inside does end up running that little bit wide. Ethan Scott very close to the bumper into the Casio triangle. Christian Lindgren with the inside line, although if Ethan Scott can make it stick around the outside, it will of course become the inside for the final turn, and it does. And contact there from Bart Matcher, thinks better of it, backs right out of it and thinks, I'm not having anything more to do with this. This is getting that a little bit dicey now, but Christian Lindgren tucks right into the back of Ethan Scott's diffuser with his splitter darting to the right hand side. Wiper comes on for Christian Lindgren. What is going on here? He's mashing all the buttons on his wheel, maybe a Wiper turbo he's got built into his Ginetta, side by side over the exit curb. Very fair racing indeed. Christian Lindgren backs out, gives it back to Ethan Scott again and thinks, this is your place, you can have it. I felt a little bit hard done by there. Maybe I was that little bit too aggressive, although with the Wiper coming on, Kevin, I think he's getting a little bit flappy inside the car.
Might be that he tried to change a bit of the traction control or the ABS to maybe get a bit more traction or speed out of the final corner to try and overtake Ethan Scott, but accidentally put on his Wiper as it still seems to be going. So I guess he's fine with seeing that Wiper go back and forth all the time as they now go through Deckners 1 and 2 again. Once again, seem to be talking when they are heading towards the hairpin. I really think that Lindgren needs to have a look on the inside here, try and get on the brakes, but Ethan Scott does cover it up really well as Bart Matcher is now once again right up the bumper of Lindgren.
Yeah, certainly so. I'm very confused at why Lindgren has his Wiper still on. I'm thinking maybe now, Kevin, that Lindgren might race in hood cam, and he hasn't realised he's flicked that on, although hopefully he watches back the broadcast and does see what he's done, because this could be quite comical for the next 26 minutes of the race. Joe Dorber in chat saying great to see some good battle in here. Unfortunately, Joe Dorber doesn't appear to be on our list of drivers anymore, has retired from the event. although we might get some news on why that is in a second. Chat, Joe, if you want to enlighten us in the comms booth as to what happened to you, would be great to hear. Although Christian Lindgren sizing up the inside into 130R, no move to be had. I feel like Christian Lindgren, since that turn one kind of rub, has almost like backed off and wound off the aggression a little bit, maybe thinking stewards are going to be looking at him, maybe sees Matt Stevens' 5-second penalty hanging over him, down below him on his MFD, and thinks, I want nothing to do with that.
I think it's more how they went side by side through the Casio triangle with Bart Mattia that close behind, causing a little bit of contact because they went that slow, trying to avoid that, as we now see him go back up to the bumper of Ethan Scott to go through turn one. And just not close enough to get any move, though. It seemed like Ethan Scott went a bit wide, bit squirrely on the exit there, as we can try and see him go past the outside, going into the SS, but there's still line stern going through there.
Yeah, certainly very tricky to pass once you get into the S's. It's very, very hard to get alongside, to even shoehorn open the door on your opponent. There's almost one line through the S's and a little wiggle there from Ethan Scott in the middle towards the Dunlop curve. Could this be the wiggle that Christian Lindgren's been waiting for? Looks to the outside, but no run to be had there. Bart Matcha still kind of sitting back and spectating this fight almost. Bart Matcha, next opponent to him is, of course, Tom Shipston up in P16. So Bart is almost going to want to be getting a move on now. He might even be the kind of, the split in this fight that gets between Lindgren and Ethan Scott. But though he could also be the car that shoehorns open the door at Ethan Scott and allows Christian Lindgren to get on through. And looking at the chat, we have Ken Arneson saying that Christian Lindgren is indeed in, he is not in hood cam. He can confirm, so he must be in cockpit view, watching his wiper go back and forth, wondering what he's done. And Joe Dorber, he was hit on lap one, got a little bit bored, had the wrong setup loaded, had far too much wing, so had zero chance of overtake anywhere, which is probably why Joe Dorber has unfortunately called it a day. But Joe, great to see you, obviously, admitting where it's gone wrong, and great to see the little insight from the drivers. I wish more kind of drivers, when we see them disappear from the board, Kevin, we don't always know what's kind of happened unless they kind of either make it vocal in the Ginetta chat or, come into the YouTube chat and let us know what happened. But say a few drivers dropped from the grid so far, Joe Dorber being one of them, and now the move on Christian Lindgren, Ethan Scott. Lindgren to the outside into the Casio triangle. He's going to try and make it the inside. Ethan Scott gives him plenty of racing room, although still no move to be had by Lindgren, although looks to have the run back down the start-finish straight, tucks into the slipstream of the hole being punched by Ethan Scott's car, leads him towards the pit wall. Ethan Scott goes defensive and thinks, I might not go this one this time, and gives him the inside line into turn one, side by side, still towards turn two. Ethan Scott, that little bit over the curb, over the green stuff, that's where you're going to find all the marbles, Ethan, and it does allow Bart Matcha through, but this now does free up Christian Lindgren to assault his charge back towards the silver guys at the front.
Yeah, it was a good move by Lindgren, now finally taking that other side of the Casio triangle, and that led to the overtake. As we see Maximilian Vede trying to get past Jimenez, though he does have a drive-through. I haven't looked at the penalties yet to see if it was track limits all caused by the stewards. But yeah, that was a good fight, and it's just a shame that Ethan Scott wasn't able to, keep on track and then not lose the place to Bart Mattia. But that's sometimes what happens when you're on the outside and get sucked out onto the green and the marbles.
And eagle-eyed viewers might have just noticed a drive-through for Maximilian Vede in the 89 in P6. Wondering what he has done, because we have no note from the stewards as of yet. I'm not really seeing, am I seeing the 89? I am. Sorry, the instant lap 11, turn 18, involving the 899 and the 89. Drive-through for the 89 for the takeout of the 899, who is, of course, Mikael Sundström. Position not returned. So once again, Kevin, stewards acting harshly upon those that haven't given the place back, when they have done wrong. Pit maneuvering a car, shoving a car out wide, gaining an advantage essentially on the circuit, but then not returning the place. Stewards definitely do not like that. So anybody that is thinking about driving in the RCI championships, we do have up and down our website. Obviously, be very careful indeed, because split one, stewards will be watching over you.
Yeah, and I think it might be a little bit harsh, because if I remember what happened, it was going through the final corner where he tapped Michael Sundström, sending Michael Sundström into the pits. So returning a position was actually going to be quite difficult at that point. Though he still sent Michael Sundstrom into the pits without him really wanting to. So that might have been what happened there with the stewards giving the drive-through for that. But still, the other incidents that have come through. It's an incident lap 10, turn 4, involving the 899 and 796. No further action, minor contact. Lap 10, turn 16, involving the 899 and 796. Again, racing incident, minor contact. Lap 11, turn 3, involving the 796 and the 899. Warning for the 796, aggressive defending from car 796 against the 899. 899 is forced to brake to avoid more severe contact. So quite some going on between, that was Benjamin Harmon and Michael Sundstrom. Furthermore, on lap 11, turn 11, involving the 122 and the 769, no further action, minor contact, and the same for the 796 and the 122 on lap 11, turn 12, no further action, minor contact, and that's what that happened so far.
So stewards certainly keeping very busy tonight, although luckily not as busy as they were at Zolder for round 2 of our 30-minute sprint races, where we had some record-breaking amounts of incidents in the sprint race, everybody wanting to make up positions as frantically as they could. And speaking of making up positions, this man here, Benjamin Heilmann, is currently in P4. We saw him start that a little bit way down the grid, I believe P6 off the top of my head, just ahead of his teammate Christoph Restrepo, who is of course down in P12, one of the first of our pit stoppers. So definitely all eyes to him, as we see a little bit of a Harry Potter moment there for Benjamin Heilmann, certainly just going off the track and reappearing in front of our very eyes. So not sure what's happening there, although Andy Boardman's still ahead of him to the good. No Harry Potter wizardry here, please, Benjamin. You will have to gain your positions very fairly, despite if you have been to Wizard School. Into Degner 1 they go, still very close indeed together. We see Ted Edwards' pigeon car getting some airtime there in the back of the shot. Of course, the mustached pigeon for Movember on the side of his car, being a little bit of a rolling roadblock. I believe that's Jose Jimenez there behind. Is going to be showing the blue flags to Ted Edwards, and Jimenez is going to want to be getting his wiggle on to get up to the back of Heilmann if he certainly can. Lights flashing there as he comes out the hairpin. I'm sure Ted Edwards has already spotted him in the mirror. Doesn't want to, give up too soon. Doesn't want to lose too much ground on his own race. Although Benjamin Heilmann looking to the back still of Andy Boardman. I don't think this fight's going to be over, and I think this is going to be another one, Kevin, that might be won in the pit lane.
Yeah, and of course at the start, Andy Boardman was able to get ahead because of the battle between Benjamin Harmon and Michael Sundstrom. It seems like Benjamin Harmon has gotten back to the back of Andy Boardman, so it seems like he's got a bit more pace. It's only the question, does he have enough pace to overtake in the sections where you can overtake in order to get ahead? Or what he, of course, could do is try and go for the early pit stop and try and overtake him there, as we see some flashing of the lights from Maximilian Fede, wanting to get past Kingston Lee here. Though, that said, it is currently full position, so Kingston Lee does not have to give way and may defend against Maximilian Fede.
Yeah, certainly so, although not for position, certainly not for class overall. Nothing to gain really for Vede other than a clean run up to the back of the next car in the queue. And Kingston Lee being very fair on his defence there, gave him just a Ginetta-sized room into the hairpin, but back towards the front here, out of turn 2, Benjamin Heilmann, Andy Boardman, as we see Jose Jimenez now get past Ted Edwards. In the background, going to be a driver to keep the eye on if these two start squabbling ahead. Obviously, everybody in the top 9 still yet to pit, down to Victor Nordqvist, to Wolf Matuszka at the top. Everything to be obviously won and lost in the pit lane. We see a couple of stops up and down the field, ranging in the 40-second kind of range. We've got 42.4. That's from pit in to pit out. The highest time, we even actually have a 35.8 from Matt Stevens. A very quick stop indeed. Not sure that was a full stop there on the jacks, up again, down again and out. Although the longest stop so far on the board, 47.2. Christian Lindgren, certainly something that he wouldn't want to have, having to charge the back again of Jetson. But Maximilian Vede has made his way past now Matthew Kingston Lee. The timing board on the left-hand side will update as soon as they cross the line, and Richard Phillips is to the back of them as well, looking to try and make a gain on Matthew Kingston Lee. Both drivers, of course, in the silver category, but Matcher still glued to the back of Christian Lindgren towards the front. Nothing to be had here, no points to be exchanged between these two. pro car and a silver car. Nothing to be gained, nothing to be lost if these guys switch position, although Christian Lindgren is going to want to try and get back to the back of Jetson towards the front, who is currently in P7, yet to take his pit stop. So still a lot of movers and shakers up and down the grid, Kevin. There's still some pit stops to be had by everybody that was in a fight that we saw, at the beginning, and now just over 14 minutes to go. I feel like this is going to be another race where everybody jumps at the last minute, such as we saw at Bathurst.
Well, it looks like the entire top 10 as it started, bar Christian Lindgren, has yet to pit. So they were all opting for the chance to pit late and hope they can pull away from everyone else, or they just enjoyed the battle and did not really care about what position they're in. That could also be a factor. But yeah, as also see Benjamin Harmon still glued to the back of Andy Boardman as they go through turns 1 and 2. Still seems to be a little bit too far back to try and overtake here on the inside or outside as they go towards the S's. Yeah, anything could still happen. We see some proper fights up and down the grid. I think especially if you look at the fight between Christian Lindgren and Bart Mattia, they're just enjoying themselves now. They might not think that they have a chance currently of overtaking someone else in front. So yeah, they're just having a blast between them. But for Lindgren is of course the added threat of Ethan Scott behind, and also Getson and Nordqvist ahead still to pit.
Yeah, certainly. So Christian Lindgren still with at least one position to gain on Victor Nordqvist once he takes his pit stop down pit lane. Matthias Thornberg, another Swede, has taken his stop now, taking the amount of drivers yet to pit to 8, obviously drawing Thornberg just out of that top 10 position down to P12. As we look to the left-hand side, the Pink Panther here comes out of the pit lane right into the fight of Matcha and Christian Matcha and Lindgren, sorry. Just behind them. I'm completely losing my marbles on where we are, although one Swede to another. Will he be the roadblock that he might be, or will he just allow kind of Lindgren through, or he might even drive off into the distance and start fighting with a car ahead to maybe even size up Lindgren? But back on board now with Benjamin Heilman, still looking to the back of the 69 Greased Weasel racing car. Very nice number indeed on the bumper, bottom right hand side. Slipstream for Benjamin Heilman, as always, up to 130R. Hasn't been close enough in the past few laps, although darts to the outside. Boardman, rightfully so, covers it off, tap of the brakes to tip it in, get the car settled on the front end of the nose, give yourself that little bit of a bigger bite, and now down towards the chicane. Still not close enough to get side by side with Boardman. These drivers just seem to be equaling each other everywhere, where Boardman's that a little bit slower, Heilman's that a little bit faster, etc. And Heilman now calls it best and pulls into the pit. So Heilman on the limiter, nice and on time there. No speeding penalty I expect to see from Heilman, although let's keep our eye on to where he drops down. Obviously Christoph Verstraper was the first kind of pro car, if you like, into the pit lane, so all eyes towards him as this battle hots up between now Ethan Scott and Bart Matcha are now looking to get involved in a little bit of a battle here. Again, silver car on pro car, no real points to gain, although does allow Ethan Scott to take away that buffer between himself and Lindgren has now caught to the back of Thornberg ahead, and hopefully Thornberg isn't going to be the block that I said he might be.
Well, also looking at Bart Matcha, he might want to just get ahead of Lindgren if he sees the opportunity, so he can attack Thornberg, because those would be for position. I said just before, they might not be fighting for anything just yet, but as we see after the piss off of Thornberg, he is very close in front of Bart Matcha, so Bart might want to get in front as soon as possible. Though we now also see after Benjamin Harmon went into the pits, he's come back out in P5. 3 places ahead of Christopher Straper. So maybe Christoph, his call to go early has not really worked out for him.
Possibly live timing may be bugging here, Kevin. Heilman yet to cross the sector line, and of course sees him tumble down another 2-3 positions now to behind the Straper, still yet to cross a timing line, and there he goes, now gets the 5.6 to his name, so he does drop quite a considerable way down. The Straper now leads him 5 seconds to the good on himself, or does that work out 3 seconds? Never quite sure, but looking here for Straper there, you see Heilman just in the back there, so yeah, definitely about 6 seconds or so on that car. And now look who is behind Heilmann. We have Sundstrom, who is, as we know, very, very racy indeed, possibly looking to take a little bit of a revenge for what happened earlier, maybe fired up after being forced down pit road at a time that he certainly didn't want to be coming down pit road at, although P9 for the FIA Team Sweden driver looking to make it a very clean move indeed. Speaking of clean moves, Bart Matcher now to the outside. Camera cuts away at the worst time ever, but no contact on Christian Lindgren. I thought we were going to see an absolute murder then into the hairpin. 4 cars all sending it into one corner. Was never going to end pretty, but luckily it does, of course, in split 1 here. Christian Lindgren still ahead of the train. Bart Matcher second, Ethan Scott third, and then Matthias Thornberg just in the back, kind of waiting to pounce just in case Bart Matcher gets tied up in a fight. Obviously, Matthias Thornberg can certainly exploit the limits of his Ginetta. The Pink Panther car, not to be confused, of course, with the Pink Performance car that we see at the head of the grid, currently just wandering away from the race from Maris Torzidlo and Jose Jimenez, as these guys now come up to 130R. Everybody very closely bunched, going to be getting a lot of slipstream and a lot of dirty air from each other, so going to be very careful to not wash wide. Again, dirty air in ACC is an absolute killer, especially when it kind of catches you off. Don't know if you've ever experienced it, Kevin. My very fondest moment was going into Island Bend at Alton Park. Turned in a little bit too close to the car ahead, and all of a sudden I had no grip at all. Just took a venture out to the grass and slingshotted through the barrier into the kind of banked shell corner, and yeah, luckily got away with it. But it's very scary when it catches you.
I don't think I've really had it in ACC. I've had it massively in the F1 games, but I think maybe because it's slightly worse there, that it's not really causing me to be caught by that in ACC. But yeah, it still does happen. We see it every now and then happen in these races, so yeah, you still need to be careful for that. It does happen, it does catch you out, and it could cause contact if you're not careful, as we now see that Andy Boardman has also had his pit stop. So this is now a very close little fight between Andy Boardman, Benjamin Harmon and Michael Sundstrom.
Yeah, Jetson, I believe, possibly also into the pits. We're yet to see a second time come out from him on this lap, although well spotted. Andy Boardman has now come out ahead, just ahead there in the shot of Michael Sundstrom. Andy Boardman right there, still ahead of Benjamin Harmon, despite both drivers taking their pit stop. Looking towards the pit lane times, they are absolutely inseparable, Kevin. Benjamin Harmon at 42.8. Andy Boardman on also a 42.8, although a 0.811 versus Heilmann's 0.805. So literally, if you both arrived at the same destination at the same time, but minuscule seconds apart, you think you pretty much arrived at the same time. So almost exact pit stops for those two drivers, and proving why these guys are at the front of the grid and towards the top of the championship. Looking down the field, we do have, I believe, fastest pit stop looking in the 40 region, kind of at a reasonable time pit stop, should we say. Mark Elgard, 42.4 from in to out, down in currently P9. Great game there from Elgard, starting P13. Now finds himself just inside the top 10 again.
Well, it's actually strange to see that I'm getting different pit stop times compared to you. For me, it's got a 42.4 for Ethan Scott as the fastest time I'm seeing. So, yeah, it could be either of the two. Very close indeed. But I also saw in practice, I think it might have been Wolf Matuszka. He was just coming in and out of the pits, trying to improve his pit stop time, or it might have been the other pink car. But you do see drivers in practice use that time to just go in and out of the pit stop, trying to absolutely minimize their time in there, and yeah, maybe gain a position or two by virtue of that.
Yeah, it's great to watch pit entry during practice, especially for drivers like Wolf Matuszka. But Benjamin Harmon now coming towards the back of Andy Boardman. Boardman covers off the inside in the hairpin, sees Harmon about to fire a move from way back and thinks, I'm going to cover this off. You're not having me this easily. So great awareness there from Andy Boardman. But it is awesome to just stand at pit entry and just watch the cars coming in. Wolf Matuszka, very fond memories of Hungaroring, Audi R8 LMS Evo 2 in the Deutschland Masters. All he did for probably about half an hour or so was come out of the pit lane, do a lap, come into the pit lane, and every time he came in that little bit quicker, to the point where he was a little bit too quick, and then just practice the kind of point before that. So Wolf is certainly a driver that can make up some time in the pit stop. And now time to make up some places for you, Benjamin Harman. As he sizes up the outside, great switchback in 130R, very close racing indeed. Boardman to the inside now into the Casio triangle. Benjamin Harman to the outside, of course, becomes the inside, and he makes it stick through the chicane. And now Mikael Sundstrom looking to come past Andy Boardman as well. If I was Benjamin, I'd have switched to the outside line there to see if he could tow Mikael almost alongside Andy Boardman and really hinder the two of them into turn one. But now the slipstream allows Boardman to come back, and now Mikael Sundstrom kind of hangs back a little bit and thinks, the door is open here. I'm going to follow Harman through as Boardman takes to the high side of turn two. Very close indeed between the two drivers. Absolutely mirror image, and Boardman contact with Sundstrom. Both drivers hard into the wall there, nearly on pace, and the Greased Weasel racing car. That's not what we want to see here at all at RCI, but unfortunately very big impacts from the two drivers as we watch a race replay here, Kevin. Side by side into turn two, both drivers kind of rubbing. Sundstrom comes up the inside. Boardman doesn't maybe quite realise Sundstrom is to his right, comes across to set himself up for the S's, and all of a sudden you've got a Swede in your door, and then you're both in the wall. Absolutely crazy scenes here.
Yeah, it does look like Andy Boardman came in a little bit too acute to the right off the curbs and did not know how close Michael Sundstrom was. But we'll leave it up to the stewards to dictate what actually happened there. Speaking of the stewards, as we're looking at Maximilian Vettel trying to overtake Victor Nordqvist, only 3/10 behind. Once again, do interrupt me. There's only one incident that's come through. It's lap 14 to 18 involving the 33 and the 404. Racing incident, minor contact. So not a lot has happened since, though. See Andy Boardman go off once again, so maybe the damage he sustained in that crash is quite significant. So now, yeah, we can see he keeps on the grass, trying to not, rejoin the track unsafely. He seems to take a very wide line to stay away from all the other cars. Yeah, that's not what you want to see, that a car has so much damage that he just stays off track and doesn't rejoin at all.
Yeah, absolutely terrible scenes. Very unfortunate from Andy Boardman there and Mikael Sundstrom, both drivers racing excellently up until that point, and things just got that little bit too close for comfort. Boardman slipping forever down the board, currently resides in P14, although more positions to be lost when he does take a pit stop. And speaking of taking a pit stop, Konrad Jetson now with the little white P next to his name, slipping down the timing board. Christian Lindgren in P12, so keep your eye on where Lindgren comes out in relation to Jetson. Those two obviously locked bumper to bumper during the opening stint of the race, although getting separated when they did take their stops separately. Matthias Thornberg still on the back of Bart Matcher, still wanting to make up some championship points here, just over 3 minutes to go. And if you haven't pitted already, the drivers at the front of the grid have just about enough time to make it round again. Wolf Matuszka, Torzidlo and Jose Jimenez are the last drivers to pit. Matthias Thornberg not close enough in turn one to make a move stick, and these drivers have now slightly spaced themselves out. Christian Lindgren now in P12. Konrad Jetson, we see he has crossed the timing board, has slipped down to P9 and does have that buffer of two cars, Tom Shipston and Jan Yo, both very capable drivers, although Christian Lindgren still very much within this, although with only a couple of laps left, he is going to be wanting to get his skates on.
I think it's just a little bit too late for Lindgren to do anything here, now that he's been behind Ethan Scott and all the other pro drivers that he's had to battle to try and get ahead, plus his slightly slow pit stop hasn't helped him at all. So I think they will end the way they are now, with Lindgren being 5.2 seconds behind Tom Shipston, who is on the bumper of Jetson, as we now see our top three finally enter the pit lane just ahead of time before the pit lane closes. But yeah, we'll see where they end up. But yeah, it's a bit of a shame that Lindgren, even though he did try and plan it correctly, it was just not well enough for him being stuck behind the drivers he had to fight.
Yeah, certainly so. And Verstappen now coming around the last turn out of the Casio chicane, still not close enough to do what he did at Bathurst, where he jumped at least 3 or 4 cars. Torzidlo is now underway as well. Ted Edwards there just behind as a kind of buffer between himself and Verstappen. But although he has made up a position on Jose Jimenez, who has just left his pit stall, just coming off the limiter there into the pit exit line. And now the battle of the Nordic countries is hotting up. Hagstrom, Vigershu on the back of Mark Elgaard. Mark Elgaard, a very surprising driver who we weren't really expecting to see that far up the championship board, although leaves the door open into turn 1. Very fair racing indeed. Vigershu thinks maybe twice about it. Elgaard there, still a little bit further from the entry curve than he'd like to be, but an injured Ginetta ahead of Mikael Sundström, who has kept going despite the hard lick in the wall. Andy Boardman found himself coming down pit road and has tumbled off the scoreboard to the left. Could Sundström's kind of rolling roadblock of a damaged Ginetta be the ball that Oliver Hagstrom Vigershu needs to get past Mark Elgaard? We know that Oliver Hagstrom Vigershu is very friendly with Sundström. They have both raced in the same team, in the same car in some events here at RCI before, but I'm hoping that there are no dirty tactics afoot here, as I expect to see Sundström kind of giving way and saying, you know what, have this battle, see you later. I don't have the turn in right here. I'm just going to leave you boys to it. And the gap has closed up something substantially on this lap as we head towards the hairpin, just over halfway through the lap now. Both drivers keeping it very tidy. Mark Elgaard, all he's got to do is survive a few more corners. He's going to be getting the toe down to spoon off the back of Sundström's car, and a very long run indeed. Hagstrom Vigershu just not close enough, I don't believe, to make a lunge. Mark Elgaard looking towards the back of Sundström, looking to gain another position for the championship. Of course, both drivers are in the pro category. Sundström has just got to hold on a few more corners, but this man here, Wolf Matuszka, takes your round 5 victory here at Suzuka in Japan. An absolutely stellar drive once again from Wolf. Drove cleanly away from the field on the opening lap, and this man here, Marius Torzidlo, next to come across the line in second. But side by side now, we see Sundström and Mark Elgaard. Elgaard to the outside of 130R. Sundström to split the two of them, looking to maybe come back into the Casio, but not quite close enough. Oliver Hagstrom Vigershu glued to the bumper of Sundström. Going to want to maximise his exit out of the chicane if he can towards the line. This is going to be the last run you will get at it, but it looks like Sundström has done just enough to claw on to P7 overall. Mark Elgaard, of course, takes the P6 away, and Oliver Hagstrom Vigershu comes across the line in P8. Some great action there in the final few minutes, Kevin.
Yeah, definitely. You rarely see that close action, as we now see Jan Yo crossing the finish line in P9 with Jetson, Shipston and Lindgren closely behind. Let's see how they finish. It's not really for position in class, but it's Jetson in P10, Shipston P11. Got Scott closely behind Lindgren. They finished, they were Vetty P14, Marcia 15, Thornberg 16, Nordqvist 17, Kingston Lee and Phillips just crossed the line in 18th and 19th. Just have a few more drivers who have to cross the finish line. I think all in all in this race, it's been pretty clean, pretty good. Of course, you always have a few incidents, some you don't want to see, like we had just a few minutes ago between Andy Boardman and Michael Sundström. But these things happen. But yeah, still all in all, I'd say overall good racing and pretty clean overall as well.
Yeah, great to see some, very clean start, like you said, Kevin. Not too many drivers got tangled up in the turn 1 kind of calamities like we expect almost at Suzuka, especially when they get to the pinch point of the S's. And Matt Stevens here for the RPMS Simsport boys in the number 77. Going to be a round for him to forget. Not one of his strongest finishes that he's had here in the Ginetta Cup, but crosses the line in P23 to round out the race entirely as we go towards the circuit screen. Like you say, Kevin, great to see, fair fights up and down the grid. Such a shame to see the Andy Boardman and Sundström battle ending the way it did. For those curious, Andy Boardman did finish overall. He finished overall a lap down in P25, so not going to be great for his championship standing although Wolf Matuszka with the P1, and of course the fastest lap overall, which is, great to see. Great drive from Wolf, as always. You can't really expect anything kind of less of this guy if you don't see him, fighting for at least one of the top two positions. You know that Wolf is on certainly an off day, and we see the car here. We see Stewie Benjamin Harman, aka Stewie, as we keep relating to him as that's what we know him within the RCI community. Finished on P4, and the man ahead of him on pit lane there, your race winner, Wolf Matuszka. So, championship, once again, Kevin, I think blown wide open between everybody. I think you're going to see Verstappen that little bit further down. You're going to see Matuszka that little bit further up, and we still have 2 rounds to go. And I still can't even call this championship. Normally you get 3/4 of the way through a championship, you can go, that guy's going to win it easily. And in this one, you just can't call it because it's so unpredictable.
Yeah, unpredictable, but also the skill level of all the drivers is so close together. You can see it always in qualifying, like the slight differences what they have there on pace, and then also their driving skill is so close together. That's why it's this tight in the standings, and why, anything could happen any race. I mean, even like the little incidents that we had with Andy Boardman. Like sometimes it happens, but then of course they still have the pace and the skill in order to keep fighting at the front at all times. As we now see a beautiful look at Ted Edwards' pigeon car.
Yeah, certainly so. And obviously, those of you that are tuning in and seeing a Mustache Pigeon and kind of wondering what is happening, obviously, Movember is an annual event involving the growing of mustaches during the month of November to raise awareness of men's health issues, such as prostate cancer, testicular cancer, and men's suicide stroke mental health. Since 2003, Movember has funded more than 1,250 men's health projects around the world, challenging the status quo and shaking up men's health research and transforming the way health services reach and support men. Keen-eyed viewers, of course, will have noticed the mustache on Ted Edwards' car throughout the whole race, although we are getting a great shot of it now sitting on the pit lane. Shout out to Katrina Scott once again, who I still haven't seen in the chat, need I add. I'm not sure where she is tonight, but normally a regular here in RCI TV. And Ted Edwards saying, hey, that's a nice car. So yeah, definitely do check out Katrina Scott. She does offer her livery services out to anyone. Certainly do take her up on that. We don't have Phil Roberts' parakeet car here tonight, unfortunately, just the pigeon car of Ted Edwards. And as we keep saying between myself and Kevin, what a race that was. Some great fights up and down the field, some absolutely terrific battles, switching back and forth, a little bit of rubbing, a little bit of leaning. Great to see. All in all was fair. And finally, a great shot of the famous Ferris wheel here at Suzuka. Lit up has been a picture of all of the shots in the race that you have caught it on. Many of the onboards do show a great angle of it as the cars come through the final chicane. But unfortunately for tonight, that is all we do have time for. And before we go, a quick message, of course, from our partners here at RCI. AK Informatica for providing our server solutions here at RCI. However, they also do provide high-end hardware, peripherals, and accessories, including any sim gear. Of course, if you're in their target market, do be sure to check them out and see if they can help you with any future purchases. Driver61.com. You can, of course, get 25% off your driver coaching by using our discount code. You will find a link in the description below and head on over to driver61.com. And finally, no other than Fanatec, your one-stop shop for the best sim racing equipment on the market. You can, of course, use our affiliate link in the description below if you are looking to pick up any new hardware, especially over this Christmas time. Cough, cough, nudge, nudge. You can, of course, use our affiliate link, and it won't cost you a single penny, but it does help us here with the running costs at RCI. And, of course, from myself, John Dalton, from Kevin Boss alongside me, from Ryan Mawson behind the cameras, and from all the stewards who have taken up their evening tonight to Live Stewards Split 1. We bid you farewell. We hope you have a great rest of the week, and we would love to see you back here on RCI TV for the same action, same time, same place next week. And remember to hit the subscribe button, the bell icon, the like button, and all that good stuff. And myself and Kevin shall hopefully see you next week. Take care.